there's a pretty stark contrast between the way Microsoft does things and the way Sony does things, and neither one of them are particularly wrong. It just depends on which side of the fence you stand. If you're an Xbox fan, you're going to tend to want to kind of stand one way, and if you're a PlayStation fan, you're going to kind of stand one way. I personally, I like gaming in general, and I really wish that Microsoft would get back to what they used to do best, and I feel like Sony has sort of swept in and sort of taken that mantle of doing things the way that I used to like Microsoft did, to be honest with you. So Digital Foundry really went in on Microsoft yesterday. I watched it with kind of my jaw on the floor. Like, they really are kind of saying what needs to be said. And even it looks like some Xbox fans are coming around. But either way, this was really, amazing to sort of hear. And I got to say, wow. You guys are going to really enjoy this video. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really do appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel, and it means a lot to me personally. So, with that being said, again, I wanted to talk a little bit about what was going on. So, we know that Sony is going a different route than Microsoft, and Digital Foundry seems to really kind of back up what Sony is doing as being the right thing. Everybody was throwing consumer friendly, and then how Sony was anti-consumer, and again, those are totally opposite ends of the spectrum for me personally, because I feel like it was anti-consumer to spend $500+ on a new console and not get games that take full advantage of that, right? That's why I was leaning more towards the PlayStation 5. Now, Digital Foundry are talking about the Halo Infinite delay. So if you didn't know, Xbox was going to launch with Halo Infinite. We saw that game showed off on the 23rd. It looked rough, to say the least. Digital Foundry has talked about this. They've talked about what needs to be done. And this is why what Sony announces, like Digital Foundry with this video, opens up people's eyes. Yes, the Xbox Series X is powerful, but if you can't get the simple games right, if you can't get your first party right, how do you expect people to really kind of be on board with what you're doing for an entire generation? And that's also coming off of this. The year is 2020 right now, right? There is 0 AAA releases from Microsoft scheduled this year for Xbox owners. 0. Okay, and I fully back and say Halo needed to be delayed, but 0 AAA releases. And then next year, if Halo launches in November, that means you would have gone 2 full years plus without a new AAA from their first party. If you're a paying Game Pass subscriber, that's a huge amount of money. Okay, and I think I've covered this before. If you're just paying the regular, that's $120 a year. That's $240 just with the regular $10 a month Game Pass. If you're paying Ultimate, that's $360 for the 2 years, and there's no AAAs being released in that time. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay. The Xbox fanboys, to a lot of you guys, and I appreciate the ones that are coming around now, right? And the ones that stayed fans of mine and understand that I just wanted better for Xbox, and it had nothing to do with hate or anything like that. Look, Microsoft needed to drop the Xbox One. That processor is old. Nobody wants to deal with that, okay? The CPU, all that kind of stuff. Those things are from 2010. Nobody is gaming on today's games on a 2010 piece of PC hardware. They're not doing it. And the fact is, you can tell very much from that video that it's being held back tremendously. So I will link this Digital Foundry. They talk about it. It's a really good thing. There's probably about 3 or 4 minutes worth of really great stuff. But basically, they talk about how Halo Infinite needs to be delayed for at least a year because it needs to be reworked and then put out as just an Xbox Series X exclusive and PC. Okay, the Xbox One version needs to be dropped. Otherwise, it's always going to be held back, and no amount of delaying it, if you're going to keep it on Xbox One, is going to make it better. Okay, it's just not going to happen. They bring up some incredibly valid points. The first thing is this. Okay, like from a consumer standpoint, you want to keep, I guess, as many people and let as many people play it as possible. It all comes down to Game Pass. I've said this multiple times. You have 10 million subscribers. You don't want to. One of the things that people like about Game Pass is the dang date big releases from Microsoft on Game Pass. You don't want to tell those 10 million people, well, now you need to buy our new box, or else you can't play anything new, because they're gonna lose a lot of those people, a lot of those members. So what happens? You try to work around that. You try to say, oh, well, we're going to release stuff that's going to be on both, and it doesn't work out. look at this, okay? They even mention it. Halo Infinite is going to be the start of a 10-year thing. Xbox One is going to get support dropped for it way before this thing ends up getting more content, unless you plan on keeping on adding content to the older version, which makes no sense. So you basically start off the Xbox Series X with a lesser version than it should be, and for the next 10 years it's going to be lesser than it should be. It's going to keep looking worse and worse and more outdated and more outdated, okay? Because they're already starting it off with less than it should be. So they mention that, and they also mention that, you know, they're hiding a lot of detail with mountains and different things because, you know, they obviously have to deal with the legacy hardware, which is more than obvious, right? But not only is that more than obvious, but isn't it funny because now I'm seeing Xbox fans on social media and other places saying stuff like, yeah, they should drop the Xbox One version, but everything scales, right? Like, I had heard from all the Xbox YouTubers and all this kind of stuff that everything scales. Phil Spencer himself said that the Xbox One isn't holding back the Xbox Series X. So which one is the truth? If everything scales and it's not being held back, why are Xbox fanboys now starting to switch over and say, you know, they should drop the Xbox One version if everything's scalable, right? Exactly my point. It was always being held back. It was always kind of weird to see people kind of stick up for something that didn't deserve to be stuck up for, to be honest with you. Listen, I've been an Xbox fan since the beginning. When I was early in this generation, when I was an Xbox fan, everybody was making fun of me. Everybody was making fun of Xbox One. I didn't care because they were making fun of the wrong things. I had great games, and I stick by that. When you launch with, you know, Forza Motorsport 5, Killer Instinct, Dead Rising 3, Rise Son of Rome, and then within that first year you add Titanfall, Sunset Overdrive, Halo Master Chief Collection, Forza Horizon 2. When you add these games, right, and they had a much better lineup to start than Sony, I was happy. Right? I was happy. I didn't care that people were making fun of me in Xbox because I was happy they had games. Okay? It's the complete opposite now. You know, I'm unhappy. Everybody's making fun of Xbox, including me, but there's no games. Like, literally a whole year without games. And the first party looks like a complete disarray mess. Right? The lack of leadership is undeniable. So, also, you have some interesting stuff coming from Digital Foundry themselves talking about the whole instance of being quote-unquote held back by stuff. So John Linneman, who obviously is in this video, he says, one weird thing I've noticed lately is an aversion of quote-unquote next-gen exclusives, as if launching a game exclusively for a next-gen machine is anti-consumer. This is how it worked before. Mario 64 didn't exist on Super NES, and it was a great thing. Business-wise, I fully understand the investments and desire to maximize potential customers, right? He says it's absolutely logical, but I don't feel going next-gen exclusive is somehow anti-consumer, and I'm baffled by the insistence that it is. So the thing is this guy tends to always get a little bit of hate on Twitter and stuff like that. I mean, he seems like a decent guy, to be honest with you, and a lot of people kind of hate on the guy, and, you know, like his job is tech stuff, and you have to kind of realize that. People were kind of a bit harassing him, and it was mostly, to be honest with you, some of the Xbox fans that were doing this. Okay, so what was very interesting was he was on Twitter, and somebody, when he mentions that, and somebody had rebutted and said that they should be able to do it. And this is what he said. He said, "Nobody wants to develop for an underpowered Jaguar CPU any longer. I've spoken with enough developers to know how painful the process is at this point. Leave Xbox One and PS4 behind." So people are still commenting that nobody utilizes the full capabilities, blah, 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 for the first 2 years. But again, Halo Infinite is a instance where they're supporting this game for 10 years. And so I'm covering it. And the funny thing is, this lady, her name is Liza, she's actually is a developer. She says building and certifying games for a bunch of targets is hard regardless of hardware utilization. Compatibility issues and SDKs and other toolings are a thing, as are staffing and infrastructure limitation. This isn't a matter of clicking an extra button to support 10 platforms versus 9. They're basically reaffirming what I've been saying for a long time, despite the fact that a lot of other people were saying that it wasn't true, and that, you know, you could just scale everything and that everything's going to be fine. Apparently it doesn't work that way, and I got called all kinds of names. I got told I was wrong and that I didn't know what I was talking about, and here we are all this time later, and now people are starting to finally wake up and see that their games are being held back. The exclusive games should always look best and always be the showpiece for your hardware. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to Halo, that should be the showpiece. That should have been the showpiece for Microsoft, for Xbox, for the Series X, and it's not. And now it's delayed. And hopefully they work stuff out. But I don't think people are going to be too upset if they decide to actually go out there and say, hey, this is 100% Series X and PC only now, right? I 100% think that's the way they should go. That's the way they should handle it. It's a year later, hopefully, and they can fix all the problems and things like that. I'm going to link all this stuff. It's a lot to take in. This 100% helps Sony. It helps Sony's cause. Digital Foundry is basically saying Sony's doing the right thing. We understand Phil's reasoning, but they're doing the wrong thing. There's nothing anti-consumer about it. It's, to me, says everything you need to know. I absolutely 100% love this stance, and I would love everybody's thoughts and opinions on it down below. But thank you for watching. If you're just joining me, shout out to all the old subscribers, new subscribers, everybody in between. You're absolutely amazing. Please consider subscribing. Rack 'em up. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. Have a great day. Game on, everybody. Game on. Crapgamer, out.
Unscripted.